Okay. Add image. I know I saved the background for just this. Okay. Oh, it's already recording. So hi, Courtney, when you watch this later, you will see me getting ready. I didn't realize it was already recording. That makes sense though, I guess. Okay. Can I have this? Over here. And then I'll let them in at the 5-minute mark. Pretty much, I want to be able to see both. Which is fine. Okay, I'm gonna let people in 1 more minute. Good evening, everyone. We're going to give it just a couple more minutes, but thank you for being here, and I hope everyone is having a good evening. Okay, I have 7 o'clock on my clock, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. For those that do not know me, I am Mariah Katayev. I am the Community Engagement Specialist for the Department of Emergency Management and Security, or formerly known as OEM. The icon is my supervisor, Courtney Arroyo. She is unable to make it tonight, but she sends her regards for everyone that does know her. Tonight is our very first monthly webinar, so thank you everyone for being here. This is a new thing that our office is trying out, so we're really excited to see, get feedback afterwards and see if this is something that the community wants us to continue or if it is just something we need to work on. So feedback is always wanted at the end, and I'm happy to leave my contact information at the end for anyone that may want it. The topic for tonight is winter weather preparedness, which I think all of us in Fairfax County can agree that it is a very fitting topic for us to go over with everything that is going on. So I'm going to be showing a PowerPoint. We're going to have some interactive moments. So For anyone that is not familiar with Zoom, when you are ready to talk, the mute button is at the bottom left corner of your screen. And that is how you're going to unmute when you wish to talk and mute when you do not want to talk. So I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint now. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to either use the raise hand feature under reactions or just say something and get my attention, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can. Okay, so with that said, we are going to get started. So let me pull up the presentation for everyone. And I hope everyone had a lovely new year. Okay, can I just have an audible yes from someone that you can see it?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you, Laney, I really appreciate it. And if you see at the bottom of the screen, there's going to be live captions. So I apologize if they are not always 100% correct, but this is always a great way to make sure that people with auditory issues will be able to participate as well. So like I said, I am Mariah Kataya from the Department of Emergency Management and Security, formerly known as OEM for the Office of Emergency Management. And this is our very first monthly webinar. So welcome, I'm really happy to see everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy evenings to do this. I know during weekdays, everything can, pile on, so I really appreciate everyone's time tonight. The agenda that's going to be happening is just a welcome. I already said who I am, my organization, and then we are going to divide what we are doing tonight into 3 portions: training modules, going forward, and feedback, so that we can improve this as time goes on. And I apologize if I pause at any point. I have to manually allow people into the waiting room, and I have to multitask on that, so I apologize. The goal of this workshop is going to be increasing the awareness and meaningful actions that the residents of Fairfax County can take to prepare, respond to, and recover from emergencies. Given that it is January and we have more snow coming Thursday evening into Friday morning, and we just had some snow, this workshop goal is going to be better preparation for winter weather, better response, and just better understanding of what the individuals can do during a winter weather event. As we said, it's going to be divided into 4 modules. So we'll have training and background, Fairfax County threats and hazards, the phases of emergency management, and now will be kind of an overall view of what emergency management is on not on a topic way, and our tools. So first, a little bit about what Ready Fairfax is. Ready Fairfax is our community outreach group through the Department of Emergency Management and Security. And my goal as someone that works for Ready Fairfax and DEMS is just to get the community more educated on the hazards that affect Fairfax County year-round and the better way to prepare for, respond to, and recover from different kinds of emergencies. So right here is the Community Emergency Response Guide. It is a free resource that is not only online through the Department of Emergency Management and Security website, but there's also a copy at every Fairfax County library. This is an amazing resource because it talks about all the major hazards that affect the county, as well as checklists for when you're creating your own emergency kit and ways that you can make family plans to make sure your whole family is involved of the process of getting ready for emergencies that could come. The purpose of it is, as I said, the family emergency plan, the organization emergency plan, the neighborhood preparedness plan, and different emergency kits. It is a way to get all of your information together so you will be ready to use it when the time comes. A family emergency plan is mostly just for your familial household unit. So it is usually for the people you live with on a regular, but we always say we want you to have one contact in your family emergency plan that does not live within your zip code. The reason for that is if a natural disaster happens, realistically, it's going to affect everyone in the zip code, and it's always really nice to have some contact number or some safe person that you can trust that is out of that area. I always like to stress that, especially how we saw with the snow that just happened, that, Richmond got hit really hard. I know one of my coworkers in Alexandria got a foot of snow. So this was definitely not a Fairfax County localized issue. Going into resilience, there's a lot of definitions of resilience. For anyone that knows anything about psychology, there's something called resilient children, and there's tons of different kinds, but resiliency in the mentality of emergency management and emergency preparedness is a little different. It is the capacity of individuals, communities, and governments, institutions, businesses, and social systems to survive, adapt, and grow, no matter what kinds of challenges or disasters they experience. This last part, I think, is the most important, because as much as we can prepare and practice, we can't prevent all emergencies from happening. We can't prevent natural disasters from happening. So the best things that we can do is to get ready for them and to understand the hazards and the risks that come with different kinds of hazards. And welcome to everyone that just joined. I'm happy to have you all here, so thank you for being here. We are now going to go into the Fairfax County threats and hazards, so the ones that specifically affect our county. This is where we're going to get a little interactive. So what hazards and threats have you faced? The biggest ones that affect Fairfax County, the best known ones, are flood, hurricane, tsunami, earthquake, wildfire, landslide, erosion, pandemic, but there are tons of others. For example, when a large electrical unit in a large electrical area does not have power, we call that not a power outage, but a blackout. And there's tons of different kinds. So if anyone has experienced any of these threats or hazards and wants to talk about an experience that happened to them, even if they lived outside of the county, feel free to unmute yourself and share that now.
Hi, sorry, my name is Gabby. I'm actually not from the area, so I could probably give a little bit of an insight on one of those. I know we have in Ecuador, where I'm from, we have a lot of power outages, like on a regular basis. So that the way that a lot of people prepare in Ecuador is by just kind of winging it. So there's a lot of candles in the house. There's a lot of like surge protectors that a lot of houses have, but honestly, we don't have something like this where someone goes through this problems that are normal in our area to help us prepare. But a lot of people actually just have their stuff ruined, and it's really sad to not have something like this. So thank you so much for sharing this with everyone. I know it's like, especially for people that are not from the area, this is probably very helpful. I haven't faced a flood related to like a storm. Like it's different, the water in the sea rises, which is different than a flood from a hurricane or something. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Gabby. And you said how your family members will have candles around. So the good thing is they are doing individual preparedness. They are using the resources that they have, knowing that power outages are likely, so they're preparing ahead of time. So while I am sorry that you feel that that area is not holding to the standards that you believe they should, it is awesome to hear that your individual family members are doing the best that they can to prepare. Does anyone else want to share any other threats or hazards they have faced? And Richard said in the chat that they put a gas fireplace in after losing power for 4 days during the winter. That is a great other kind of not only preparedness, but mitigation. So the term mitigation is to lessen disasters, to lessen the effects of them. It is not to prevent them, but how Richard was saying, he still lost power, but by him having this gas fireplace, it mitigated how much losing power affected him. I'm sure he was still unable to run appliances, but he had heat. So that is an awesome example, Richard. I am a Fairfax County native. I was born and raised in Fairfax County. And I remember when I was in, I believe, elementary school, we had an earthquake here. And that was one of the scariest hazards for me because at the time I lived underground in my parents' basement, and I didn't know what was going on. We had paintings falling down, we had photos falling down. So that was a big experience for me about the importance of recovery, because to be honest, I got yelled at a bit because I didn't understand that the earthquake had aftershocks. I didn't understand that there's broken glass everywhere. So that was a big wake up moment for me. And then the second to last one on our list, pandemic, we've all gone through this hazard. We've all gone through this one together. Everyone around the world has been somehow, in some way, shape, or form, affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So that has been a very large one. Wildfires, we know that's a very common and unfortunate hazard that affects the opposite coast a lot. Tsunamis, those can really affect our territory like Puerto Rico and our state like Hawaii. Hurricanes, we don't like to think about that in Fairfax County, but it is not uncommon for Fairfax County to get the remnants of hurricanes. And remnants sounds like a small amount, but that can actually have a detrimental effect to Fairfax County residents. So now we're going to go over the different kinds of Fairfax County threats and hazards by definition. The smallest circle in the middle we see as everyday emergencies. Examples of everyday emergencies would be an individualized medical emergency, so nothing like COVID-19, but that would be something such as someone having a heart attack, a car accident. Stuff that is definitely affecting residents, is definitely a threat and a hazard, but it is not affecting the county as a whole. And within that, we have human cause hazards. Human cause hazards are not only fires caused purposely or things of that nature, but it's also things such as cyber attacks, things that were purposely done to cause a negative effect to the county. So cyber attacks, terrorism attacks, sometimes we combine the two, and then you'll see terrorism attacks that affect our power grids. And then we have natural threats and hazards, and those are the most common ones. For the example, floods, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, the ones people usually think of when you hear a natural hazard or any sort of emergency management hazard. This is just naming all the different kinds of natural hazards. So thunderstorm, flooding, extreme heat, earthquake, hurricane and tropical storms, winter weather and extreme cold, and tornado. As we all know, we're definitely in the winter weather and extreme cold situation right now. I know as of, I believe, 4 p.m., the National Weather Service said we were expecting 2 to 4 inches Thursday night into Friday morning. So that is definitely a winter weather situation that is important to know about and to prepare for. Wow, that is a small enough amount of snow that I'm sure there are people that are going to drive in it. It is not safe to drive when it is snowing. There's a lot of ways that you can get hurt. There's a lot of ways you can get too cold. So it's definitely a time to hunker down and stay home if that is something that you were able to do. Going a little more into winter weather, as this is the subject of this webinar, this is how to protect yourself during winter weather, different definitions, and different things that can happen. At the bottom is, in my opinion, the most important part, and it is the definitions of a winter weather advisory, watch, and warning. These are words that we hear all the time, but not everyone always knows what they truly mean. A winter weather advisory means winter weather conditions are expected and may happen. A winter storm watch means that they're possible, but it's also expected within 36 to 48 hours. You have a day and a half to 2 days to get ready. A winter storm warning means not only is it expected, we know it's coming, but it's expected within a day. So that's really the time to do your last minute things and hunker down in case anything comes a little early. Thank you for the question about the space heaters. We are going to get to that later in the presentation. Very valid one, especially with everything that is going on right now. Ways that you can protect yourself in winter weather. As I said, stay off the road if you can. If trapped in your car, stay inside your car. Walking around in the cold is a great way to get frostbite or hypothermia. Limit your time outside. The reality is a lot of us have driveways or sidewalks that we need to shovel. If you fall into that boat, I know I do, it's important to do small bursts at a time, do lots of breaks, to not overexert yourself because there's already extra stress on your body by doing physical activity in really cold weather. The differences between frostbite and hypothermia, they're very, very important to be able to spot. Frostbite is when your parts of you will be going numb. The problem with it is because people go numb on the parts that they have frostbite on, they often don't notice that they have frostbite. So this is really common in the hands and the feet, especially the feet in children that are playing outside for a long time. Even if they have, snow boots on, they might get wet, so their toes are going to get too cold. But because frostbite makes those areas numb, they might not notice until it gets too bad. So that's when it's sometimes important for us adults to, say, hey, let's go in for an hour, let's dry your clothes, let's take some time to heat up, and then we can go back outside to playing. Hypothermia is when very cold temperatures and cool temperatures, not only the freezing temperatures, really start to affect you and lower your body temperature. When this happens, it's a real medical emergency. It is a time that you really need to get inside. It is a time that you really need to heat up. Hypothermia is really scary, but on the upside, hypothermia is easy to spot before it gets worse. You can see shivering if you're feeling exhausted, if you're fumbling your hands, if you see someone getting extra drowsy. In infants, it shows in bright red, cold skin and very low energy. We all know it's normal for children to cry. So if you have an infant that hasn't cried in a very long time, that is a way to know something can medically be up. So that is another great way that we can know if our infants are in trouble. This is some really great winter weather advice, because as I said, the reality is a lot of people have to go out in winter weather. It's just not realistic or practical for everyone to always be able to stay inside. When it is chilly, cold, and extreme cold, there are different things that you should do. No matter what, you should always do light, multiple layers. The reason for that is it's always important to have layers because it holds the heat better. And when anything gets wet, you are able to take it off and still have other layers on. Multiple layers can really hold your body heat and make it so you can keep doing whatever you're doing longer. A face mask is really great, and not the COVID-19 face mask, but a ski mask or something of the sort to keep your mouth warm. I'm a huge fan of keeping your nose warm at all times. You lose the most heat through your head, but that doesn't mean your appendages like your nose and your toes and your fingers aren't going to be feeling it just as bad. So going to the question that I believe DB asked, this is going on to the different kinds of heating devices. You cannot, I shouldn't say you, people, us, none of us should be using gasoline heaters, propane heaters, natural gas heaters, or charcoal heaters inside. The problem with that is they all put a really high risk for carbon monoxide poisoning, because carbon monoxide is something that we can't see and we can't smell. And not everyone has a carbon monoxide alarm in their building. I'm a firm believer that everyone should. CO2 alarms are not very expensive. They're at Home Depot, they're at Lowe's, and they can really save someone's life. Because of this carbon monoxide issue, you should never heat a house with a gas stove if you have lost power or anything of the sort. I have heard of generators that are solar powered, to go to your question, DB. I have not seen them in person myself, and I assume that they are on the pricey side, unfortunately, but I do know that they definitely exist. These are some tips when we're all snow shoveling, when we're getting our cars out, when we're making it so we can get to work if we still need to go. Help clear sidewalks if you can. Snow is a communal effort. It affects everyone. It's good to work together to make it so that everyone has an easier time in this weather hazard disaster. I love the second counts as fire breaks out. It's easy, it's catchy, it's easy to remember. So always clear a 3-foot radius around the hydrants in your neighborhood so that fire trucks will always be able to get through them. On that topic, even in times of snowstorms, it's really, really imperative to not park in front of a fire hydrant. I have seen on multiple occasions where a fire happens, there's a car parked in front of the fire hydrant. So the firefighters do what they have to do to save lives. So they break those cars' windows to put the hose right through the car. You don't want to be in that situation. No one wants to be in that situation. And then if you have a history of heart disease, do not shovel without your doctor's okay. Call 911 if there's chest discomfort. When we're shoveling in the snow, we're getting warm, we're doing physical activity, our hearts are really pumping, it is really tiring. It is really imperative that we do it in small bursts and give ourselves tons and tons of breaks. Snow removal in Fairfax County. So I believe 90% of the roads in Fairfax County are owned by the Virginia Department of Transportation. So they are in charge for plowing public roads, but not sidewalks. When it comes to sidewalks, that usually falls under either the homeowners association of that area or the organization that owns that business complex or another large group. That does not fall under the Virginia Department of Transportation. That does not fall under Fairfax County government. Private streets are the responsibility of the homeowner / condominium association, the 10% that are not owned by VDOT. And that's why before snow happens, or maybe, before the snow happens tomorrow, if you live in a homeowners association area, this would be a great time to contact your HOA and just say, what is our snow removal plan? I can guarantee that any homeowners association that one of us lives in has a snow removal plan. I personally live in a condominium and I know that they shovel the sidewalks for us, but they do not help get all of the cars out. So what I mean by that is the road will get plowed in my area, but when it comes to getting your individual car out, it becomes an individual effort. That is okay with me. I knew that when I chose to move to this area, but it is an important thing to think about before you move to a new area on if you want to be stuck in that situation during a winter weather event. Unfortunately, a lot of us heard about what happened on 95 and people being stuck in cars for a very, very long time. That was a very terrible thing to hear. And it is a great way to ease into the topic of what you should have in your emergency kit when it comes to winter weather. 3 days of water is a great rule of thumb. If you can't do that, I like to go by the rule of a gallon a day per person. And I personally do not have a separate car emergency kit and home emergency kit. I have one emergency kit that when I leave my home, I put it in my trunk. So that it is able to serve both purposes and I do not have to spend the money to create two individual ones. A cell phone charger, we all know that's very important. 3 days of canned food. That said, the number one thing that people forget in their emergency kits, believe it or not, is a can opener. So if we're going to have canned food, it is very, very important that you pack a can opener. Such a small thing makes such a big difference. A shovel or something to get the snow off your car. So it can be one of the smaller things that people use just to get snow off their windshield. A small first aid kit. A flashlight. If your flashlight is battery powered, you need to have extra batteries. I am a huge fan of the crankable flashlights so that there's never a situation where it's not going to work. We don't have to worry about batteries running out. Right below the flashlight, we see a radio, the same deal. I'm a huge fan of crank radios. And you might think in this day and age, why do you need to plan for a radio? And that is, in lots of different emergencies, phone lines get taken up by everyone going through the same thing, and it might be hard to contact people by phone, but there's always going to be emergency radio stations that people are able to listen to. So that is always a valuable tool, even if it's just a small crank radio. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or expensive. Road salt in case you ever get stuck in ice or snow, so you have a way to put traction under your tires to get out. If you do not have road salt, I am also a huge fan of using kitty litter. I personally have a cat, so kitty litter is something I already have around. So I just buy an extra bag of kitty litter during the winter and I keep it in my trunk. And then once it gets warm out again, I take it out and use it. It's a win-win. Important documents are huge for your emergency kit. Examples of your important documents are going to be if you own your lease to your house, if you rent, your rental agreement, anything related to a copy of maybe your birth certificate, a copy of your driver's license, personal identifiers that would be really important to have if you had to go to an emergency shelter. Really hard things to replace. I also am a huge fan of having a copy of your prescriptions if you take any daily medicines, because if we do have to go to an emergency shelter, the Red Cross does help with Fairfax County emergency shelters, and there usually are ways for us to help people get medication. But to do that, we need to have an idea and evidence that those medications are the ones that you do take. And then all the way on the right, we see the adorable dog. It is important. Our pets are part of our family, so we really want to include our pets in our emergency kits, food, water, and then some sanitary items. So, poop bags if you do have a dog. When it comes to smaller animals like cats or different small animals such as birds, it's really important for them to be in carriers. When large emergencies happen that affect the whole area, we have different shelters, human and animal shelters, that will help take domesticated pets for a short period of time until the emergency has passed. During times like that, everyone is trying to get their animals safe, of course. So it's really, really important that you have your own carrier for small animals, because the reality is we just don't know in times of emergency, in times of crisis, if there will be enough. So some tips for driving when you have to drive in winter weather: pack an emergency supply kit. We just talked about that, all the great things that you can have in it. Winterize your vehicle. Some people like to do snow tires. You need to make sure that your air pressure is correct for the colder weather. I recommend making sure that you have a nice oil change right before the weather gets bad. You never want to be stuck on the road during the cold, even if it's not because of a snowstorm, but because your individual car just has issues. Stay mobile, have a cell phone with you. We are in the day and age of technology. Cell phones really do save lives. It is a great way to contact not only emergency services, but people you love and trust, that you trust to help you in times of crisis. Check road conditions. Everyone in this group should sign up for Fairfax Alerts. Fairfax Alerts is a great free program that can email or text you or do both. It's completely personalized preference when different kinds of issues are happening around you, including different traffic accidents and road conditions, as well as acts of violence and tons of other different things. Again, it's a completely free program. So Fairfax Alerts, wonderful program. Please think about signing up if you have not already. And check out the National Weather Service forecast. The National Weather Service is a great organization that serves the whole country. They are trustworthy, and they are a great way to understand the weather ahead before you get into your car, so that you know what you might run into on the road. Now we're going to go more into general hazards that might be a little less winter-based. As I said a couple slides before, there are human-caused hazards, such as cyber attacks, civil disorders, acts of violence, hazardous materials, chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear situations, or dam failures. Fairfax County Emergency Management has a plan for each and every one of these. Cyber attacks, we just got through the holiday season. Cyber attacks are huge during that time, especially during COVID. They rose like crazy because people weren't going to malls in person. They were shopping online. So when people are shopping online, it is easy for cyber criminals to give you fake emails or fake texts to make you think you won raffles that you never signed up for. So that is a huge common one. Civil disorder can be riots, acts of violence, and terrorism. There are tons of different kinds of terrorism. Hazardous materials such as chemical spills or radiological spills, and then dam failures. I've given this talk before where people have said, why do we need to learn about dam failures in Fairfax County? There are multiple dams and levees in Fairfax County. And there is a way that you can actually go to the Department of Public Work and Environmental Services website and look up how close your residence is to any of the dams or levees in the area, so that you can know if you are in the risk of a flood zone if a dam failure was going to happen. everyday emergencies. So this is going to be structural fires, power outages, and blackouts, and medical emergencies. I'm sure most of us heard about that sad fire that happened in Herndon. Power outages, I'm sure a lot of us were affected by the ones that just happened with the bad weather. And medical emergencies can be everything from a child falling and breaking their leg to someone unfortunately having a seizure, a stroke, or anything that involves immediate emergent medical intervention. So now we're going to go into module 3, which is the phases of emergency management. This is one of my favorite icons or graphics, as you might say, in the whole world, because it shows preparedness, mitigation, recovery, and response. But more importantly, it shows how mitigation is in between, after, and before. Mitigation is something that you can do before an emergency happens and after one has already happened. For example, is insurance, whether it be flood insurance or just homeowners insurance. You can mitigate the effects of an emergency by signing up for insurance ahead of time. And then once an emergency has already happened and you realize maybe you should have had insurance, this is a great time to also afterwards sign up for insurance. Preparedness is what we do to take actions ahead of time. So that would be building our emergency kits when we know bad weather is happening, making sure we have extra batteries, making sure we have road salt, we have shovels. Response is what we do in the moment. So that would be hunkering down, staying warm. If we do lose power, doing things to keep ourselves warm and safe in that time. For example, if you lose power, choosing to not open your fridge and freezer to keep it cold longer, that would be a response. Recovery would be after the snow has stopped falling, going outside and helping people shovel and helping clear off and helping getting back to how the community was before the disaster or emergency happened. Oh, it seems I went a little ahead of myself, so I might go a little faster through this section. So mitigation is sustained action to eliminate or reduce risk. So they lessen the effects of future disasters, like I was saying, insurance. And they say cost effective right here because insurance is cost effective. It is not always cheap to get insurance, whether it be rental or homeowners, but what do they say? An ounce of prevention for a pound of care, I believe, as a way to protect yourself, as a way to make sure that when an emergency or a disaster does happen, you will be prepared and protected as much as possible. In the emergency management field, we do not say if an emergency is going to happen, we say when an emergency is going to happen, because emergencies, we can prepare for them, but they're ever ongoing. Preparedness, preparing your home before a snowstorm. We see in a lot of areas like Louisiana, boarding up windows before hurricanes, building emergency kits, doing whatever you can to help yourself before that issue or emergency has time to take place. So it can really vary for different things. For example, if you have children, I always recommend practicing a plan for fires, picking 2 areas where you and your kids can meet up if a fire happens in your place. The reason I say 2 areas is we do not know when a fire happens, which side is going to be affected of your residency. So it's always good to have a left or right side. And those are just safe meetup spots. So your children will know in this time of emergency, get out, wait in that place for mom or dad or another trusted individual to meet up. And these are the big 5 steps to preparedness that we believe helps Fairfax County the most. Creating an emergency plan, so making sure you have everything necessary, making sure you have all of your emergency contacts in one place, deciding who is your emergency contact if you have not. If you choose someone new for an emergency contact, please tell them that they are. Not everyone does that. And then when they get called up in times of emergency, of course, they want to help their loved ones, but it's always good to know ahead of time and to know that if something is happening in that area, they might be contacted. Practice your plan. There are tons of different ways to practice plans. When it comes to things like the safe area during a fire, we like to make it a race. That's one way that we can say. The kids are going to race to safe spot number 1, to safe spot number 2. You can quiz them at dinner time of where those safe places are. They don't have to be scary things. We can make it fun and still educational and serious and important at the same time. Assembling an emergency kit. So making sure that you have everything for the time that you are in. And what I mean by that is we should change our emergency kits. I apologize for that. I don't know what that sound was. What I mean by that is when the times change, when we're going back or forward in time for daylight savings time, that is when we should tune our emergency kits to those seasons. So when the clocks change, and I think it's November, please correct me if I'm wrong, that is when we want to put our winter gear in, our extra socks, our extra jackets. When the time is changing and it is getting warmer, it might be time to take our jackets out and put in some shorts, making sure that we have things that will keep us cool, putting extra sunscreen, so we can really tune our emergency kits to the seasons as they are happening. Staying informed, Fairfax alerts right there. It is one of the best things you can do. Always be localized, free emergency information. That breaking news symbol is just to represent all news, whether it be local, state, or national. Just be informed, know what is going around in your community so you will always be in the know. And getting involved. We have tons of ways for volunteers to always be to help each other in Fairfax County, such as our volunteer emergency response team and other groups. There's a medical reserve corps through the health department. There are tons of different ways that Fairfax County residents can choose to get involved and help each other. Here are other ways that you can get involved related to Fairfax alerts, such as our monthly emergency preparedness newsletter, following Ready Fairfax on social media. We only have Ready Fairfax right now for Facebook and Twitter. On both accounts and websites, it is at Ready Fairfax. And signing up for a functional needs registry. The functional needs registry is a way for people with access and functional needs to be contacted when it comes to different kinds of emergencies. And it is a way for emergency management to know which people might need extra help in emergencies and just different ways to contact people that fall into different kinds of minority groups. So these are different types of ways that you can get involved. The Community Emergency Response Team, the Medical Reserve Corps, the National Neighborhood Watch, there's tons of different ways. The Fairfax County Community Chaplains, if you want to help from a religious standpoint, the Police Service, Citizen Corps. The OEM Volunteer Corps falls under the Department of Emergency Management and Security, so I'm a little biased towards that one. And if you chose to get involved with that one, you could help with community outreach that we always do at communal events, whether it be, we've done some at Tyson's Corner Center, we've done that at elementary schools, high schools, lots of different places. And what's great about these groups, and I know this is true for all of them, you can be involved as much or as little as you want. It's not a all or nothing kind of thing. You don't have to devote X amount of hours to be involved in the organization. That will never be a scenario. So now we're going to go into response and different kinds of response. Lockdown, shelter in place, and evacuation. And I believe we're going into more detail on the next slide. Nope, my apologies. So for lockdown, I feel like most of us have heard the phrase lockdown in relation to schools. When a school practices a lockdown drill, when there's usually an act of violence or an act of terrorism, that is where you are going to stay put, be as quiet as possible, get as low to the ground as possible, get away from windows, and just try not to be seen. Shelter in place, there are different kinds of shelter in place. The most common ones are when a tornado and a hurricane is coming and you decide to not evacuate or not go to a shelter. So ways that you can shelter in place in a tornado is a bathtub, or if you have a basement is preferred, but if not, bathtubs are great because of how strongly they are attached to all of the other parts of the house. They are heavy. You can go into a bathtub, get really low and put a mattress on top of you, protecting your neck as much as possible. And then there's evacuation. Evacuation can be something such as a fire or choosing to leave during that hurricane or tornado warning, choosing to go to a different area. And that would be a great time to have your emergency kit so that you have things that are really, really important to you with you when you do choose to evacuate. So these are different ways that we can stay informed. I know I'm beating the dead horse with the staying informed, but it is one of the best ways we can all protect ourselves. Fairfax alerts for our emergency notification by email, text, or reverse 911 calls. Our Fairfax emergency blog that we update, and then following Fairfax County on social media, whether it is the official Fairfax County Twitter and Facebook, or following different departments like Ready Fairfax, Health Department, Public Works, whatever is your preference, whichever makes you feel the most comfortable. We want you to stay informed, and I know that is not always the same thing for every person. Watching, listening to TV and radio, staying informed with live stuff. I know not everyone has cable nowadays, but there are different ways that we can watch TV from our cell phones or our computers. And as I said, I think very early on in the presentation, a radio is a wonderful thing when our phone lines get caught up. The power might be out, but if we have a battery powered radio or a crank radio, it's another way to still stay in contact. And the Fairfax County government radio can be accessed by phone or internet. So there are different ways to get in contact with us at Fairfax County. So now recovery. This is what happens after the emergencies have passed. And recoveries can take days to years, depending on the extent of damage. And I know it sounds silly to think that recovery can take years. The most pronoun and well-known example in the United States of recovery taking a long-term time to complete is Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina happened many years ago, and they are still considered in the recovery phase. They have something called an open presidential declaration where they are still getting federal funding and assistance because they are still needing recovery help, whether that be in manpower or financially. Recovery is not something that can always happen immediately. Think of when we see homes destroyed from tornadoes, such as in this picture. These are not always quick recovery situations or scenarios. One that's more relatable to us recently is recovering from snowstorms, when the snow has stopped falling, but there's still ice and snow everywhere, and we might still be stuck without power, and we might still be working to get the ice out so that we can safely walk around and so that our communal members are safe as they continue on with their days as well. These are the key recovery activities. So conducting a disaster cleanup, that would be a communal effort, such as after a hurricane or a very large flood, getting a volunteer group together and picking up trash, picking up things that really we don't want in our water or our runways, we don't want children to touch, we don't want animals to eat. When we are doing a disaster cleanup, it is very, very important to wear gloves, not just the kind of disposable gloves, but the kind of gloves that will not be broken through if we touch things that are sharp. Filing insurance claims, such as homeowners insurance or rentals insurance, or if you do have flood insurance, that is another big one. Flood insurance is something that you have to get through the federal government. It is a very different insurance, and it is one that is very, very useful, but it is one that we hope that we will never, ever need. And then applying for disaster assistance when there are large disasters that are affecting the area, when there are presidential declarations, then there will usually be some sort of disaster assistance. I will say disaster assistance will never cover 100%. That is why it is still important to have insurance, and it is not a good idea to not have insurance because you think disaster assistance will be able to cover everything. And now we're in our last module. So now we're going to go into different tools. So these are different tools that you can use in your own time to get yourself better prepared for emergencies, such as volunteer programs. If you want to be involved in volunteer classes, you want to learn more hands-on, or if you just want to help educate others, developing your family preparedness plan, developing a business preparedness plan, and the 5-step to neighborhood preparedness plan. And all of these templates, so B, C, and E in this list, as well as G, the emergency kit checklist, all have pages and sections that you can fill out yourself at the end of the Community Emergency Response Guide, or the CERG as we call it. And that can be found online completely for free and completely fillable. So that is a great way for you to either fill out digitally or print out and then fill out and make a preparedness plan that is really kindred to your needs and your concerns. The neighborhood survey is a great thing, especially if you think your neighborhood might do well with a neighborhood watch. Just figuring out the ideas and feelings of your area, figuring out if you want to do a large neighborhood preparedness plan. We want to go over good meeting spots if something happens, such as a community center if your area has one, places of worship. And this is almost the end of our presentation. So we are now at the wrap up and what's next. We have another webinar next month. For everyone that might have not been here at the very beginning, this is our very first monthly webinar. So I'm really glad that everyone is here to be a part of it. And I really appreciate everyone taking their time to be here tonight. Let me go to the last page. And then this is the contact information for community engagement. And this will help reach me, Mariah Katayev. Again, for people that might have joined later, I am the community engagement specialist for the Department of Emergency Management and Security that overlooks the Ready Fairfax initiative. My supervisor is Courtney Arroyo, and this email box is something that both she and I have access to. And we are happy to answer anyone's questions. We're happy to give detailed information or get PDFs or links to the emergency preparedness plans if you struggle to find it on your own. We are friendly people and we love doing community outreach, which is why I'm here tonight. So please never hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing. And if anyone at this time would either like to start speaking or use the reactions button on the bottom right to raise their hand, I'm happy to answer any questions. We have about 12 minutes left. And I'm also happy to hear some feedback because again, this is the very first time we've done a monthly webinar.
Yes, I would like to make a statement, please.
Yes.
I found this to be extremely informative and very well done. I would like to thank you for your time in giving this presentation. And it's very educational and something that we can take away with us and use in our everyday lives. I would like to just take this time to thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you for that compliment. That is very nice of you. And we love to hear, I will put my email in the chat, yes. We love to hear that this is stuff that you are going to take home with you and that you are
Absolutely.
going to partake to make it more to your individual family or group situation.
Yes,
And
thank you.
thank you. And I'm typing in right now, but I am mariah.katayev at fairfaxcounty.gov.
How do you pronounce that last name again?
Katayev.
Oh, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions or anything that you'd like me to go into detail about? I am happy to do so at this time. Or if you can write it in the chat if you do not feel comfortable verbalizing it, I completely get that with a large crowd. Okay, hearing none, I am going to say thank you everyone for your time. Again, I am Mariah Katayev. Please reach out if you have any questions. I am happy to talk to anyone. If you have any more direct questions, we can always talk one-on-one by email or by phone. Yes, Don? Oh, or is that a question or is that a clap? I believe that is a clap. My apologies.
That's a clap. That's a clap.
Zoom,
Good job.
I know we are
Good
far
job.
into this pandemic, but I'm still getting used to it. So have a great night, everyone. Thank you for being here. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, thanks.